NUMSA and the NUM have accused Eskom of negotiating in bad faith during the ongoing wage increase talks. The two unions have rejected a 1.5% wage increase offered by the power utility. They are instead demanding a 15% increase. To give us more details on this, I'm now joined by NUMSA Spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi Majola. Phakamile, a pleasure to have you on the program this evening. It seems that the unions as well as Eskom are failing to find each other during these talks, and now you're accusing Eskom of spreading lies. Tell us more about this.
Good afternoon, Nhlanhla, and good afternoon to your viewers, and thank you so much for having me on your show. Indeed, we find ourselves at a very critical time in these talks at Eskom, where we have not managed to find a meeting point insofar as trying to resolve this round of wage talks. As you correctly said in your introduction just now, you said that we are demanding 15% and Eskom has put only 1.5% on the table. For us, this is something that is completely unacceptable, something that we have rejected with contempt. And we do so, Nhlanhla, because of the fact that Eskom is trying to mislead the public and create the impression that workers and their wage demands are in some way going to collapse the entity. We want to be very clear that even if workers at Eskom received a 0% increase, it would make absolutely no difference to Eskom's crisis and to its debt levels, because the problem at Eskom is not what workers are earning. And if you analyze the numbers, we'll be able to demonstrate what we mean. The problem here are the cost drivers of the bloated REIPP costs as well as the coal costs, which Eskom simply refuses to intervene on.
But now Eskom is arguing that it simply cannot afford what you're demanding, this 15% wage hike amongst other demands. Is there a way of meeting or finding a meeting point here, a middle ground?
Can we really believe Eskom when they say that, though? How can we believe them when they say that, and that there's money for the renewable energy independent power producers, which, when you look at Eskom's financial results and financial statements, in the last financial year, the REIPPs contributed 128 billion in terms of costs to Eskom. The coal costs themselves, as of 2020, have contributed 73 billion in terms of costs. Yeah. Whereas the wage bill at Eskom has remained at 33 billion from 2017 up until 2020. So clearly, workers are not the problem here.
So for the benefit of our viewers, just explain to us exactly what the unions are demanding at this point.
Our members are demanding a 15% increase. We are also demanding maternity leave be extended to 6 months. But our main issue is the fact that we cannot accept a 1.5% offer from Eskom, because that 1.5% may as well be a 0% offer. We say this because Eskom is saying that for you to receive this 1.5%, you have to fund the self 1.5%, and the only way to fund it is for workers to relinquish or to give up certain conditions and certain benefits. Now, we find that completely outrageous when you analyze, for example, the fact that when NUMSA gave its determination for the tariff increases for Eskom, NUMSA was very clear that it even allocated an amount of 5.4% for workers' wages. As you know, Nhlanhla, Eskom is a regulated entity. Any kind of operational costs must go through NUMSA for approval. NUMSA approved a minimum 5.4 increase for workers and a 0% increase for primary energy. Eskom has taken the money that is supposed to be given to workers, used it to fund these corrupt contracts with coal suppliers, and is basically telling workers that they must relinquish benefits that they have worked decades for, so that they can continue to loot this entity through corrupt contracts of REIPPs and coal. And as workers, we are saying no. We've had enough. There have been many examples where this entity has proven that it has the capacity to pay. For example, the government keeps telling us there's no money, and yet there's money to fund a power ships deal at a rate of 10.9 billion per year for 20 years. That's absurd. And there is absolutely no way that you can convince workers at Eskom to accept being ripped off in this way.
But Phakamile, there's also the wider questions as to are your demands really that realistic, given where the economy is right now?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's very important that people must remember that workers are the ones who have already made massive sacrifices, and they continue to make massive sacrifices. As I speak to you now, Eskom has already let go of more than 2,000 staff, and it has intentions of releasing at least 6,000 more. Workers are being asked to make sacrifices. We want to know, when will the executives at Eskom make sacrifices? When will, for example, the management of Eskom act on the directive given by Cabinet in 2018 to renegotiate the cripplingly high coal costs and REIPP costs? I think it is completely outrageous that people expect workers to take further sacrifices, and yet the very things that are responsible for the collapse of Eskom, there is zero intervention on. So we think that if indeed we are going to be fair and we are going to be honest, then let's deal with Eskom's cost drivers. Eskom's cost drivers are not labor. Eskom's cost drivers are these corrupt contracts that both government and the Eskom board refuse to intervene on.
So, Phakamile, in a few minutes we'll be speaking to Sikonathi Mantshantsha from Eskom to get their view. But before we get to him, there was this briefing held by NUMSA as well as the NUM about their discussions with the embattled power utility. What else was said about the wage talks?
Well, one of the things that we have been very distressed about is that what we've experienced in the course of these wage talks is generally an attitude from Eskom where this management clearly does not want to try and find meaningful solutions to turn around this entity. We believe that the job of the GCEO is to find solutions to make Eskom sustainable in the long term, to deal with Eskom's cost drivers, and ensure that both the public and the taxpayer do not have to continue to be burdened with these extremely high debts that Eskom is currently dealing with. What we are proposing, especially when we talk specifically about tackling Eskom's cost drivers, speak directly to that. But what we are experiencing in terms of our engagements with management is a management that is not interested in dealing with these issues. This is a management, for example, in the first week of wage talks failed to present a turnaround strategy, even though that was something that they were expected to do. And to make matters worse, you've got a spokesperson who goes around peddling lies in the media, claiming that workers earn an average salary of 773,000 rand. I can tell you now, Nhlanhla, if our members were earning 773,000 rand, we would not have a problem with wage talks at Eskom. So there is a very deliberate strategy from the side of Eskom management to portray a false image of workers, as if they are pampered, as if they are spoiled, as if their demands are being unreasonable. And the purpose is to shift focus and direct focus away from where the true cost drivers are. Sikonathi deliberately speaks about the 33 billion in an attempt to direct the public's attention away from the billions more that are being looted through other contracts. We're saying that if this government is genuine about turning Eskom around, then let's plug the holes that are bleeding Eskom. Eskom is collapsing because of extremely high costs, and those costs have nothing to do with labor.
So it clearly seems to me that you are accusing Eskom of negotiating in bad faith. Just give us a quick summary of what is expected to happen next. Are you willing to continue with these wage negotiations?
We want to resolve these wage talks. We want to find one another. Our members are eager to get to work and focus on doing the job that they know best, which is to continue to keep the lights on. But what they will not accept is to be mistreated and disrespected by Eskom management. They will not tolerate these lies that are being told about them. And what we would want is for Eskom to engage us meaningfully, to deal with our demands, and to actually work with us to turn this entity around, because they're not going to be able to do that without us anyway. And I think it's time that DPE and the Minister of the Department of Public Enterprises was held to account for the manner in which Eskom is and the state it is in currently. It is absolutely disgraceful that right now Eskom is incapable of actually guaranteeing energy supply, and that it has failed to act to plug its cost drivers. And until that happens, Eskom is going to continue to collapse.
But are you willing rather to find a compromise? Are you willing to settle and maybe move back from your 15% wage demand?
Oh, absolutely, we're willing to compromise. But it's very difficult to get workers to compromise when they can see evidence of looting and mismanagement in other areas. How do you explain to a worker that they should accept losing out on benefits and conditions, that they should accept only a 1.5% increase, and yet Eskom management seemingly has limitless funds to pay renewable energy independent power producers? REIPPs last year cost 28 billion, and yet they only contribute 5% in terms of the energy that they provide to the grid. Why should taxpayer money be used to continue to fund this project? This is the private sector that's benefiting. It's not the public sector. It's not the public that's benefiting at all. If this government is genuine about renewable energy, Eskom should be the one that plays the role in providing renewable energy in this country. The private sector should not play a role. Our taxes should not be used to enrich senior members of the ANC leadership who have connections with coal supply companies and renewable energy companies. Workers are basically being asked to take sacrifices so that this governing party can continue to loot. And that is the heart of the problem. Our members will not tolerate this. Of course, we want to try and resolve this strike. But if we're not able to find one another, we are going to have to resort to other measures.
Now, Phakamile, we're fast running out of time, but I want to squeeze in one last question. You have supported calls to see the sacking or firing of the GCEO of Eskom, that's Andre de Ruyter. On a different note, were you guys happy with the outcome of the probe into the CEO's racism claim?
We've made it very clear that we do not have faith in Andre de Ruyter, and he continues to prove us right that he is not the right person for the job. The very fact that he could say that workers' salaries are self-funding already shows a huge level of ignorance in terms of how the company works. So for us, he may have been cleared in terms of those charges, but it doesn't take away the fundamental problem, which is that as a GCEO, he cannot keep the lights on. He should not be in that space, and if he was black, he would have been fired long ago.
That was NUMSA Spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi Majola. Just a quick reminder that after the break, we will be speaking to Eskom's spokesperson, that's Sikonati Manjanja, to get their response. So do stay with us.